earlier in the season, but right now you kind of see that going. A lot of crisp. Lanes are kind of tough to judge because you think you might have the best shot in the world, but then it turns out that there might be a defender coming right at you.
Kyle Corona along it past midfield line, and Rhett Rogers, he loses his stick, picks the ball back up. However, Corona, he'll take a shot. That'll be blocked. And a good defensive play from the USC goalie, taking it across midfield once again. And it's another long pull. Eventually passes it off. USC's in the box. Reset the clock. Here's a play from Daniel Katzman, the goalie for USC, the only goalie on the roster today. We haven't mentioned it before, but we're live. So welcome back into Arizona State's West Campus. We have the number 10 Arizona State Sun Devils taking on the USC Trojans in the first round of the SLC playoffs. North versus South. Troy Lynch alongside Blaine McCormick here with you on this beautiful day in Glendale, Arizona. Right now the current score is 0-0. Both teams been on the attack. USC actually came out with a full head of steam, and they were on the possession for a while, but Johnny Perletti, the freshman goaltender for Arizona State, he's proven himself to be one of the elite goalies in the MCLA.
Yeah, and definitely with only 5 minutes into this game, he's already made 3 quick saves, especially using his body well and just having the stick really operate well for him. And, I mean, Arizona State is now working their offense. They haven't gotten too much into it. We saw an early shot by Kyle Corona, which went off of Daniel Katzman, the goalie for USC. But now they're trying to establish their offense, set the tempo right now.
Arizona State still on the attack, just circling around the box. And that ball will go out of bounds. Pass intended for Finn Wells, actually playing midfield today. Talked with head coach Todd McRobbie before the game, and Finn Wells, he was an attackman at the beginning of the season, and decided to switch him back to midfielder because that was his intended position last year.
And, Finn Wells standing at 5'10" and 175 pounds, he's a good body out there for the Sun Devils, especially at that midfield position. One thing about him, he's very quick. He's got very shifty feet, and his dodging has been phenomenal this season. And, I mean, with 18 points on this season, it's a pretty good track record.
I mean, only standing at 5'10", but this guy's a beast. He plays like, he has the mentality of a 6'3" attackman. He doesn't take anything from anybody, and he can score goals. My goodness, he's quite a shooter. USC back on the attack. Loose ball. Scioto on the defense for Arizona State. Still 0-0, 9:15 in the first quarter. First round of the SLC playoffs. USC not really used to going into the postseason. It's actually the first time ever they made the SLC tournament.
And it's a great momentum for the Trojans right now, and just riding off of the great season that they've had. I mean, an 8-7 overall record. That's a huge rebound, and I think it's mostly the coaching, especially hiring new coach Adam Gittleman, and he's a fantastic player in the MLL as well.
Yeah, he actually was just with the Boston Cannons, and another sloppy turnover for USC. But, I mean, Arizona State's been the MO for them, too. Still 0-0. But back to what we were saying about Gittleman. Was a goalie for the Boston Cannons, and actually just told us before the game that he decided to switch over to the Atlanta Blaze because that's where his head coach, who was at the Boston Cannons, now he's over with the Blaze. So that's why he made the decision to move over.
I mean, that's such a treat for these players, too, to have a professional athlete as your coach, especially at that level of play. He knows everything about the game, and being a goalie, he's involved with every single play, too. He has to make those quick saves, and especially from the fast shots that we see in the major leagues, especially going up against a player like Paul Rabel and having to save those kind of shots, it's phenomenal. And I think that translates to his team right now, especially with the defense that they've been playing. Look at how bunched up they are in the slot, and look how present Katzman is between the pipes.
Katzman actually had to share time with Christian Davey in the last time Arizona State met up with the Trojans. They both had 8 saves apiece and just split in some time. But right now, Katzman, the only goalie on USC's roster. And a quick shot from Rhett Rogers out goes far left. But only 22 players on USC's roster today. A lot of people could not make the trip to Arizona.
Yeah, and asking Coach Gettleman about that, we see some players been absent that, we kind of see them have breakout season, especially with Henry Armistead for one example. 28 points on the season. When asked about that, he just said, you know what, it's club lacrosse, and left it there.
It's a little bit of a different aspect when you look at the NCAA than club lacrosse. Of course, the players have to pay to play, and it's a little bit of a different aspect when you talk about it. Good catch by Fueller, and then a shot from Rhett Rogers, and that dribbles in. Arizona State, they get on the scoreboard first with a nice bounce shot from Rogers.
Well, and that's a great look from Rogers right there, top of the point, right to the left side, and we've seen that shot from him before, and what a season he is having, and it translates just back to last season too. That's his 21st goal this year, and last year he had 29 on this season throughout the whole season, including the MCLA tournament too. So he's having another breakout session, and I think that really translates to the attack of this Arizona State team as well.
Arizona State's always been blessed with good attackmen and also good face-off specialists. Zach Mathian will be taking on the face-off duties. Last year was Zach Handy, and Arizona State trying to pick up the ground ball. Mathian eventually does, actually still bobbling. USC won the first face-off today, but it will be Arizona State to win the second.
We saw the scrappy play there from Mathian, too. He doesn't give up on the faceoffs. Normally what you see from some faceoff specialists is they just go in, kind of brute up the guy, and then leave out. Zach Mathian, he's in there until he gets the ball within his pocket.
And I think it's so clutch for Zach Mathian just to be the player that he is, because he's one of those squirrely type of players who is not a Fogo. He's a face-off specialist, but then after that, he is a speedy defender, and he can really clamp onto one of the attackmen for USC, or it doesn't even matter who it is, and he can really put a damper in a person's game.
And the speed just translates to his game too, and you see that in the faceoffs. You see that as a defensive midi from him. He's just everywhere, and it's great to have a person like that you can use as a utility role as well. Having him be in multiple roles and not be restricted to one position.
Rhett Rogers trying to muscle his way in. Ball picked up. Katzman coming out of the goal to try to pick up the ground ball. Still loose. Getting closer and closer to the crease. Players flying, and the refs eventually blow a whistle.
On those types of plays, they're tough because everybody's bunched up around the ball, and they can't, get a good stick on it because then it'll just be knocked away. But USC able to come away with that one for possession.
USC back within the box. We'll reset the clock. It'll be Dylan Carlin for USC. USC still trying to get on the scoreboard. 1-0 Arizona State after that last goal by Rhett Rogers. For the first time when they had to play in Southern California at the Pac-12 shootout, Rhett Rogers eventually scored 4 goals and no assists against the Trojans.
And that was a very lopsided game going in favor of Arizona State because, in that 11-4 victory, we mentioned the faceoffs earlier. Only 3 faceoffs were lost by the Sun Devils in that game.
And blocked away by Nathan Blair. Good defensive play. And here comes Zach Long. A long stick midi past the midfield line. Ball behind the goal. That's Haviland. Sophomore for Arizona State. A transfer, actually at the beginning of the season on the roster. He says he's a freshman. He's not.
Well, we've really seen him blossom the past couple of weeks. And 18 points on the season. I'm looking at that 13 goal mark from him too, and just a great play from him, and he really connects well with fellow young man Jake Marthins as well, out of Rancho Santa Margarita, California. 14 goals on the season for him, and they have just connected. We saw that in the game they had up in Colorado too, where they had assists and just great open lanes from him in that game, causing them to beat the number 5 seed at the time. It's
really funny because normally when you look at Arizona State's stat line, the goals and the points just seem to really, really rack up, and you look at it, and it's Rhett Rogers, and that time Finn Wells puts Arizona State up 2-0, 4 minutes to go here in the first quarter.
Well, that's a great open look from Finn Wells, and that's a great momentum from him too because he hasn't scored in the last 3 games. So that's going to be a great rebound from them. And Arizona State really clicking on offense. Not too many turnovers. We saw a little bit earlier in the quarter, but now they've really crisped up their game, connecting the pass as well and looking for those open shots. Finn Wells collecting his 15th on the season right there.
Right, and we go back to our point where we look at Arizona State's stat line in the past, and we've always seen that they've been so offensively dominant. And Arizona State picking up another face-off win. Zach Mathian, much less of a struggle to win that time. Arizona State up in the face-off game 2-1 against the Trojans. But players like Dan Davis in the past, who 2 years ago had around 90 points, and now you look at the stat line, and Rhett Rogers leads the team with 28 currently. So it's a little bit low, but I think it just goes to show how unselfish this team has become this season.
Yeah, and I mean, the distribution has really been there for Arizona State, because with last year, Dan Davis was the sniper of the team.
Yep.
Whereas this year, they don't really have too many target shooters, but they have bodies that they can put into the crease, like Rhett Rogers, standing at 6'4" and over 200 pounds. It's just a good essential part to have those kind of guys where you can use them in multiple roles, like I mentioned earlier. And Rhett has been that way, using him as a pick man, also as a goal scorer, and just a big creator for plays as well.
We mentioned it before, Arizona State, a lot of their younger talent on the team really stepping up the past few games, especially a few weeks ago when we called it Arizona State's Hell Week, when they had to play 4 games in the span of a week. And 3 of those teams were top 10 opponents: Colorado, Colorado State, and the University of Arizona. Ended up taking 3 wins out of that week, which is pretty much their turnaround, and some good passing from Arizona State, but even better defense from USC. They can't pick the ball back up. Henry Archie, one of the seniors for the team, picks up what USC's putting down.
And Archie, the captain for the Sun Devil Squadron, has really had a breakout year for him too. Last year, he only had 3 goals on the season, but this year, he's got 12. And that's a great stance from the captain, especially on his last year here.
A jump shot from Rhett Rogers, but that was USC's goalie, Katzman, who was all over it. Some open space. A shot blocked? No, it wasn't. That score, Jake Marthins gets his first goal of the game, and the Sun Devils up 3-0 over USC.
Well, that's a great look and great interpretation from the Sun Devils on that one, because Katzman was out of the crease trying to save that earlier shot from Rhett Rogers, but Jake Marthins knew where he was going in that one, going right to the crease, setting up for the open pass, and what a quick stick from him. That'll be his 15th goal in the season as well. Sharing that stat line with senior Finn Wells.
Exactly.
Really blooming. And we talk about the freshmen on this team and the younger personnel. The future looks good for Sun Devil Lacrosse.
It really does. It really does. If you take a look at how many freshmen they have 16 on the roster so far, and a lot of them have done some big things, and only graduating 6 seniors. But you also think about the future, and USC is also looking like they're going to have a bright future too. Not there. That time, Patrick Haviland, the sophomore, getting in on the fun. And ASU, they score 4, and the last 2 in the last 30 seconds.
Well, what an assist from Zach Mathian, just immediately winning the clamp on the faceoff, going downfield. We mentioned his speed earlier. It showed right there, just going in right into an open lane, and then great vision to find Patrick Haviland for the quick stick goal. What a game so far for the Sun Devils.
So the time between the last goal and the goal you just saw on your screen was 6 seconds.
It's crazy. I mean, they just operate so well. And we see another face-off win from Zach Mathian, and we see him just going downfield. He's great.
It was a good poke check from USC. So I'm coming from Peter Holland. But even head coach for USC, Adam Gittleman, he knew that faceoffs were going to be such an important factor coming into this game. And the last time Arizona State saw USC, Arizona State took the game at 11-4. But what's even more important is that faceoff stat line. Mathian went 8-2 against the Trojans, and after that, it was Trevor Driscoll, who doesn't get as much playing time as Mathian, but he went 6-1. It's a combined 14-3 stat line, which is so key for a team to win a game.
And also, with going off of that point, the last time these two teams met, a different face in goal for the Sun Devils, as Russell Bartle started off the year, and 16 saves for him and only 4 goals allowed in that game. but I look at his save percentage, 80 save percentage.
It looked like Archie knew that he was going to get hit, and the ball sails out of bounds. However, Rhett Rogers, the closest one to it, and he'll inbound. So 4-0 as we enter the last 20 seconds of the first quarter. Arizona State, in the last meeting with USC, they scored 4 in the first quarter as well. They'll get the last shot. 5 seconds left to go. And the stick of Wells passing it over. Bobbled. There's the buzzer. So 4-0 is the score to end the first quarter. Arizona State looking very dominant. And now we're going to take a look at the other first-round matchup in the SLC tournament against UCSB and UNLV. Kind of the same type of story. UCSB, they're number 12 in the nation right now. UNLV barely getting into that SLC playoff spot because there are a few other teams, especially in the SLC South, that we thought would make the tournament, like U of A.
But the Sun Devils were able to upset the Lacrosse, in Tucson, and able to push UNLV into the playoff spot. You know, the current score of that one, 4-3 in favor of UCSB Gauchos.
So we take a look at the playoff bracket. So on the top side, we have UNLV taking on UCSB. The game that you're watching right now, Arizona State taking on USC. So whoever the winner of this game is, they'll go on and they'll take on number 1 Chapman. And then over on the other side of the bracket, the winner of the UCSB UNLV game, they'll take on former SLC champion GCU. And both of those games are going to be competitive no matter who's going to go up against them.
And both of those teams that you mentioned, GCU and Chapman, big threats for them too. And I mean, Chapman has just had a year, haven't had one loss on the season. That's right, folks. 16-0 is their record. And I mean, for a Northern Conference in the SLC, you know, there's sometimes less competitive matchups in that one, but Chapman has just blown their opponents out of the water in a lot of games. And I mean, big upsets too for him, upsetting Colorado this year, Colorado State. It's just been a year for the Panthers.
And if you get a chance, you should really check out the SLC preview show. Blaine and I were on that earlier this week, and then we actually gave our predictions at the end of the show. I actually predicted that ASU will be taking on Chapman and end up upsetting them, which would be their first loss of the season, and I feel like they would be taking on GCU in the finals. But Blaine, you have another, your predictions are a little bit different.
You know, my opinion on the matter, we mentioned it in the preview show. I predicted Chapman to go all the way and end up beating the Lopes in the last game of the tournament, and just because they've had such a phenomenal season this year, and I mean an undefeated record and the personnel that they have as well, I don't see any reason why I can't beat Rock Chalk Panther. But I could see the Sun Devils upsetting them too if they win this matchup against the Trojans.
Right now they're looking good. Start of the second quarter has just begun. Arizona State still up 4-0 over the Trojans, and they get the ball right back. A tough pass, but it picks it back up. And a nice pass to Rhett Rogers. Another quick one. Patrick Haviland, second goal of the game. Arizona State up 5-0 against the men of Troy.
Well, and what a shot from Patrick Haviland, and that will be his second goal of the game. I mean, we mentioned it before, but just a phenomenal season for him coming out of Citrus Heights, California. And I mean, that's going to be his 15th goal on the season.
And right now we'll send it over to the third member of our broadcast team, Bailey O'Carroll, with a sideline update.
A lot of that's been communication. They just keep sending Johnny on that sideline. They love that freshman goalie of theirs, Johnny Perlitti. And USC's been a different story. A lot of miscommunication there, not a lack of communication. And their coach is just really getting very frustrated because he's making the wrong substitutions, and it's really frustrating for them. It's led to ASU being up 4-0 early on.
Thanks, Bailey.
Good.
And another face-off win for Arizona State. They're up in that category 5-2 over the Trojans. Of course, Zach Mathian taking the reins, and he's been doing so all season long. He's become very, very impressive. And actually before this game, Zach Mathian, 129 and 48 on the season. Another goal for Arizona State. You almost can't even speak. That time by Wes Schuler.
You know, cool storyline about Wes Schuler. Went from the same town as Jake Marthins as well as Connor Ebner on the team. And another cool story, that's his first goal of the season right there. And what a time to have it as well. First goal of the season and in a playoff matchup. Boy, his teammates are going to want to keep that ball for a souvenir.
I mean, you almost have to.
Yeah,
that's an exciting time.
You got to write on it, you know, first goal, 2016, playoff.
Yep, 6-0 over the USC Trojans right now. I'd take that home. I still have my very first home run back when I was playing in baseball Little League, and it was the only home run I've ever hit ever.
Yep.
And I never hit one in practice. That was the weird thing. That was the weird thing about it.
You're clutch then.
Yeah, that's why I'm calling some lacrosse games now. My baseball career did not last very long. A battle going on Arizona State's defensive side. And it'll be USC's possession, so they'll win another face-off. Still trying to get on the scoreboard. 13:35 here in the second quarter. Arizona State up 6-0. And you mentioned where Schuler, Ebner, and Marthins come from. That's my neck of the woods as well.
Oh, that's right.
Marthins actually went to neighboring high school, Trabuco Hills, who were they were a rising program in the sport of lacrosse for sure. And then there's a defender, Cole Roberson, for the USC Trojans. He's a freshman this year, and he was on Tesoro High School, which is my hometown. He was very, very good, very fun to watch. And just knowing that Southern California, they've sporadically had players throughout the MCLA, and it's a growing sport. I mean, it's the fastest growing sport in the nation, and hopefully to see it in the Olympics pretty soon.
Yeah, and I mean, coming from Colorado, it's very big up there. And I mean, the DU Pioneers winning the NCAA championship last year. Ever since then, the sport has just been blooming, and in the past 5 years, it's been increasing every year. And with the high school that I went to, we started with about 17 guys. Now we're up to about 60.
Jeff
for all
Sanchez.
teams.
Excuse me, Blandon. Jeff Sanchez with a quick shot. He doesn't score most of the time, and kind of predicted that he would there, being up 6-0. Rhett Rogers, top right corner, and he's getting the fans fired up. 7-0. That's his second goal of the game.
Well, what a shot by Rogers, too. And those shots are kind of tough to make, too, because you got to get the pivot foot exactly right, and that's exactly what Rogers did, moving all of his momentum to the left side and putting it right there, hitting the top crossbar. What a shot by Rogers.
Arizona State, they are looking very tough to beat right now. 7-0. USC, they had a little bit of a spark at the beginning of the game, but ever since ASU scored the first goal, it's been downhill for them.
Well, I mean, Arizona State has just come out with a fire, and I mean, we've seen that from them in past games, but this game, it's just been so significant from them. And I mean, you know, you mentioned the goals scored. I mean, Rogers, Finn Wells, Marthins, Haviland, it's all been attackmen.
Well, Wells
is a midfielder for this game, but we've seen him play at attack in the past. And I mean, the speed of this offensive forefront has been phenomenal for the Sun Devils this season.
Wells could probably play any position. He's got the body type. I mean, he's not the tallest guy, but it really doesn't matter, especially in the MCLA. Finn Wells, he's one of the most coachable kids you'll find on this Arizona State roster. And that's just seeing him grow the past 4 years. It's really been a sight to see.
And a local boy, too, out of Chaparral High School in Scottsdale, Arizona. And, you know, this game has been really significant for him. I mean, I mentioned earlier, hasn't scored in the last 3 games, but what a game to get that momentum going once again, especially in this playoff atmosphere and at home.
Be a turnover, then USC will take the ball. That's something that head coach Todd McRobbie's, he's from Arizona as well. He played for Arizona State back in the 90s. And he'll try to get players who are locals to come play for Arizona State.
And you kind of see that in his coaching style, too. I mean, he was an attackman back in his day, and you see that transition into his offensive forefront, too, looking for those open looks, trying to find those guys who have a lot of speed and have those quick shots. And, I mean, recruiting players, like you mentioned, Dan Davis, and then this year they have Finn Wells, Rhett Rogers, emulating those kind of qualities that he looks for in the attackman and the midfield as well.
And it's funny because this is the first year that Todd McRobbie's the head coach for Arizona State. He spent the past 5 years as an assistant coach, 4 years under head coach Chris Malone, and then 1 year under Joe Thone. He was actually a defensive coordinator under Malone, and then last season he was an offensive coordinator. So Todd McRobbie, he can coach defense or offense even though he was an attackman in college.
And I mean, it's been a good season for him. Started out a little rough, but now they have a 6-5 overall record. They're in the SLC playoffs, and they're just out with a fiery passion. Like I mentioned earlier, 7 goals. It's been a game for them.
And that's a record you don't normally see when you're looking at Arizona State's history. 6-5. I mean, there was a span where Arizona State, they went on a 4-game losing streak, which hasn't been the case in quite a long time.
Yeah, and I mean the stats, show that it hasn't been a productive one. But what a goal there from Finn Wells once again. He's really rebounding off of that dry streak right now.
He really is. I think he heard you say something, and he decided to turn things around. I'll make it 8-0 here at 9:40 left in the second quarter. You heard me correct.
It's kind of been deja vu for the last time these two teams played, but Arizona State really sticking it to them right now. And I mean, it's kind of surprising to see the stat line of Katzman and then the result that they've had in this game so far, because he's coming off a 19-save victory over their rivals UCLA, who they played last week to get into the SLC tournament.
That game went down to the wire too. UCLA, they can surprise you. They've beaten some pretty solid teams in the MCLA and a competitive team in the SLC North. No doubt about it. But I mean, you got to expect it to be extremely tough for this USC roster, who's only got 22 players today. I mean, we were talking with head coach Adam Gittleman, and we're going over pronunciations, talking about who's here, who's ready to play, and it was like we were going through every single name, and it was like half the players were just not even coming.
Yeah, and I mean, in those types of situations, especially in this time, you want to have as many guys as you can, but you want to have the ones who give you the most production as well. And we've seen that from a lot of USC's players, but hey, it's club lacrosse.
That was a great save by Katzman. Bouncing it back up, USC will pick up the ground ball. That's Askew taking it past the box, but he's being heavily guarded by Rhett Rogers, playing some defense too. The junior doesn't only shoot goals, he plays some good defense as well, but USC, they're looking good and looking to get on the scoreboard for the first time today.
Yeah, Rhett kind of roughing up Askew on that one. I thought they would draw a penalty because he kind of had a cross-check right to the neck, and those can be dangerous calls too. And then a little bit of a slash, but no penalty called on that one. They're letting them play. That's the best type of lacrosse right there.
Absolutely. You never want to stop.
No. It's all about momentum. And once you get on that hot streak, you continue on that hot streak. And, I mean, we've seen it from this game. 8 goals, and we're not even to halftime yet.
It's kind of scary to think about what the score will be, but I mean, it still is 8-0, but USC can still come back. I mean, it's a tough task, especially when Arizona State is number 10 in the nation and you get plays like that. And a good interception from Henry Archie. Steps in the box, resets the clock, and Arizona State once again on the charge. Montana Griffin slowing things down. A lot of good passing.
We haven't seen too much of Giffen in the past season. I mean, he only has 1 goal on this season. But good to get some minutes from him. You want to kind of distribute the playing time from your players. Make sure that they get warm, especially if you're going to be playing another game here soon.
And a live score update from the UNLV UCSB game. 5-5 with 12 minutes left in the half. A much closer game than we anticipated, but another North versus South matchup. Call it a hat trick. Rhett Rogers, have yourself another day.
And that's the same exact shot that he had previously on the 7th goal of the game. That jumping, twerking, and just raveling shot that he has. The pivot foot is just phenomenal for him right now. And, I mean, it's all about the hip motion. And Rhett Rogers, he's mastered that.
Rogers' 3rd goal of the day. We mentioned it earlier in the broadcast, how he had 4 goals the first time they played USC this season. This is actually the third time ASU and USC have ever played each other in their history. The time before this season was 10 years ago, back in 2006, where Arizona State destroyed the Trojans 20-5. But we mentioned it before with USC's incoming freshman class, how their future is very, very bright. And Gittleman doing a good job in his first season as a head coach, getting into the SLC playoffs and making a convincing run for the MCLA tournament.
Yeah, and I mean, it's all about talent that you have to have in this kind of setting with the MCLA, because you're going up against players that have played the game for, you know, who knows how many years, ever since middle school or even elementary school. And Gittleman sees that. You know, he sees that his team may not have the most experience, but he's going to get the most out of them that he can. And with having his knowledge playing in the professional leagues, he's going to do good for this USC Trojan program.
Solid defense getting some sticks in front of the pass, but ASU's offense being extra aggressive today. A good check wrapping around the body of Ellis. USC just trying to pick it up, and they do. Cole Roberson past the midfield line. Steps into the box, passes it back off. That's Nate Galper. Try to slow things down. USC, it just seems that they need an extra breath just to try to get something, because we haven't seen them take as many shots as we did in the beginning of the first quarter.
Yeah, it's kind of been a quiet night, or a quiet day so far for Perletti. And I mean, you know, he's started the past 5 games, and we've seen him do phenomenal this season, only having a 3.6 goal to allow average. That's been great for him. 64 saves on the year for him, too. He's looking as good as ever in this one.
We saw Perletti. He's a freshman this year, and it was actually Russell Bartle, who was a junior transfer from High Point University, which is a Division I program, still like in the top 25. Ended up making the transfer to Arizona State. Don't know the exact reason to why, and that was a good opportunity for USC to score. Pick the ball back up. Almost another interception. And then having a tough game against GCU, finding some room, trying to shovel the ball into the net. This one will barely stay in bounds. No whistle will be blown.
That's a good interpretation from Coleman Lee on that one. As soon as you get the ball out, you just got to track it, and he was just looking for a garbage goal on that one with a stick of Perletti, able to sweep it away.
Lammers, nice move out of the X. Good pass. Just too far. And it will be Arizona State's possession. The ball rolls out of bounds.
Close call on that one. It looked like the ball just trickled on the line, but referee sees it go beyond it. Now a big turnover there for the Trojans.
Just under 4:15 in the second quarter. Arizona State up big, 9-0 before halftime. But back to Perletti. He got his first starting nod against the number 4 team in the nation and the reigning national champions back in 2015, GCU. Gave up 4 goals in the game, but he still performed noticeably well. You can tell by out of all the goalies that Arizona State had, it started off with Russell Bartle. He had a tough time. And then Chris Rufanis, who was the starter for ASU last season, he gets a penalty. All of a sudden, they have to put their 3rd string goalie in. So Perletti comes in, gives up a few goals, but it wasn't that big of a deal, to be completely honest. Arizona State ended up losing that game 17-15. But ever since Perletti has been a starter, Arizona State's been a different team.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just been a momentum change for them. And I mean, we mentioned Hell Week for them that they had a couple of weeks ago, and it's just been a great momentum shift for the Sun Devils. And it all started, I think, with Perletti, you know, and after that GCU game, they were just on a tear, because before that, they had the 4-game losing streak, losing against BYU, Boston College, and then Cal Poly to open up their homestand as well. We hadn't seen that from this ASU team for quite some time. And then going back after GCU, they get the win against SDSU, then UNLV, and then they travel to the Centennial State where they beat Colorado and put up a good fight against Colorado State, losing by only 1 goal, and then they come out strong against the University of Arizona. They're in-state rivals in Tucson. I mean, it's just been a complete turnaround for them. Tale of two halves of the season, really, for them.
It really is, and it's funny because we mentioned Hell Week that Arizona State had to go through, starting with UNLV, ending with U of A, but they weren't supposed to play the Colorado schools in between those 2 games. Those were actually scheduled to be after the BYU game. However, it got snowed out and they couldn't play, so they had 19 days off, and then they had to go up against Grand Canyon University, which was a huge reality check. But ever since that game, they have been a different team, and there's been a lot of different factors to go into that. But, I mean, Arizona State, arguably one of the toughest schedules in the MCLA.
Oh, I know, and you're playing top 10 teams in the middle of your schedule, and I mean, a lot of those are division play too, with GCU in your division, U of A in your division as well, and then you go up against scrappy teams too, like UNLV and SDSU. Yes, they might not have the best talent, but they have the numbers to get scrappy and defend their own against the Sun Devils. But ASU just proving that their offensive floor check has just been, you know, great this season, and they're proving it against the Trojans in this one.
Good turnover from USC. Excellent defense from the men of Troy. That was Peter Holland on the defense against Montana Griffin, forcing the turnover. Poletti with another save. He's been quiet, but for Arizona State, that's good.
You know, funny thing, that's only his 5th save of the day, too. And I mean, it's under 3 minutes to halftime. Normally the numbers for that are up close to 10 or close to double digits at that time, but right now he's sitting pretty between the pipes.
Arizona State's defense taking another big step up. They have a good middle class, really, to hoister the Sun Devils defense with Kyle Corona, Jeff Sanchez, Zach Long, and of course Nathan Blair, who's a walk-on last season. I mean, Arizona State, not normally known for their defense, but they're showing that they can hang with them. I mean, against a team like Cal Poly where they lost 4-5, their defense stepping up really big, and a 7-6 loss against Colorado State University after you play the former number 5 team in the nation the day before.
Yeah. And I mean, you got to travel up to Fort Collins from Boulder, which is about an hour-and-a-half drive.
Excellent save from Kratzman. And USC, they get away with one. It was an excellent shot and an even better opportunity for Arizona State.
Well, that's a good rebound from Katzman right there. And I mean, his save percentage on the year is 66 and averaging 12.3 saves per game. That's a good momentum shift for him. I wonder if that'll translate into their offense right now. But going off of Arizona State's defense too, they're all young. They only have one senior on the team in Mitchell Drake, who has 4 ground balls this season.
So under a minute and a half here in this first half. So we mentioned it before. ASU's defense and another shove. Oh, that's going to be a push in the back. Kyle Corona will be drawn with the penalty, but the play will continue until Arizona State touches the ball again.
Yeah, you notice the fans not really liking that call right there. But it is what it is on that one. The officials have to officiate fairly.
Good opportunity for USC to score. Just missed the shot there off the mark. Dylan Carlin with a good opportunity. Now we're going to send it over with a quick update with Bailey O'Carroll.
How hot it is out here. This Arizona heat really getting to that team. It's already 90 degrees and it's just about 140. The longer this game goes on, the more USC is going to feel that heat, and they're going to have to get used to that. You know, they're already down 9-0, and this is going to have to be something that they learn to get used to and figure out a way to solve that problem.
Stay with. Yeah, it's going to be extremely tough task, especially when you only have a roster of 22 people on the team. Not a lot of players to get rest, but Blaine, you mentioned it before. They have a sub for almost every position, but that's not ideal, especially when you're going up against the top 25 team. 15 seconds left in the second half. Sketchy pass from USC. Almost paid dividends. That was Coleman Lee. Ball will go out of bounds 10 seconds before halftime.
You know, Bailey mentioned in her broadcast.
Coleman Lee with a shot. Perletti making it look easy, chucking it down the field. And then there's the halftime buzzer. 9-0 is the score going into halftime, and it's been all Arizona State in every single category. Blaine, what'd you like? What did you not like?
Well, Bailey mentioned hot streaks in her report right there, but Arizona State coming out hot, and I mean on fire too, especially in the face-off game. Zach Mathian having 7-3 record in this game so far, and that's pretty much a deja vu of last time these two teams met as well, only losing 3 face-offs the whole game. And so I'm really liking what I'm seeing from the face-off X. I'm also liking what I see from the offense of Arizona State right now, especially from Rhett Rogers. You know, he's been hot all season, but this game he has just shined. Already a hat trick, that he got before halftime, tallying 23 goals on the season for the Scottsdale native, and especially from Finn Wells too. Hasn't scored in the last 3 games. He already has 2 goals in this one, and the assist from Mathian downfield. You know, the offense has been clicking. Everything's just going in motion for Arizona State. From USC, they need to step up a little bit, especially on defense. And we saw that kind of later in the period, but you didn't really see that energy in previous stances from them. So I think if they step up the energy on defense, it's going to translate right back to their offense.
You hit the nail right on the head. 3 Sun Devils with multiple goals in today's game. 9-0 is the score going into halftime. Stay with us here on the Walter Cronkite Sports Network. We'll have your halftime show with Eliav Gabai, Ethan Gaines, and Catherine Fitzgerald in just a few moments. But until then, I'm Troy Lynch, alongside Blaine McCormick, and we'll be right back for the second half of this first round of the SLC playoffs. Spark alive early in the second quarter, bobbling the ball a little bit. No over and back call.
We kind of see a different stance from the Trojans in this one right now. You know, we saw a great save from Katzman to start off it, and then a good clear for him too. So they're trying to get that fire back into them and really kind of have a turnaround from the first half.
That's just something that we saw in the beginning of the first quarter. Is USC, it seemed like they were on fire. They had a lot of time on the possession and unfortunately didn't get a goal, but that's because Johnny Perletti's been so effective.
And I mean, he has been effective today, and I mean, he's been effective all season too. Only 36 goals allowed in the 5 games that he's appeared in.
Quick shot from Harry Ferguson for USC, the 6-foot, 175-pound freshman from Snowmass Village, Colorado. Your neck of the woods, Blaine.
Yes, sir.
Not sure if it's close to you. He has 16 points on the season, 7 goals, 9 assists. USC could really use some of that offensive production right now, being down 9 to start the third quarter. We take a look at the other side of the SLC bracket. Number 12, UCSB taking on number 20, UNLV. Number 24, excuse me. And UNLV, the Rebels, right now have an upset going on into halftime. 6-9 is the score.
Well, you know, we mentioned UNLV earlier in the broadcast. They're a scrappy team.
Schuler, call him the sniper. My goodness, Sun Devils, double digits early in the third quarter.
You know, you mentioned earlier that Dan Davis previously wore the number 2 jersey, but now that's kind of rubbing off on Wes Schuler on that shot. I mean, that was just a perfect one. You hear a little bit of a ting of the pipe on that one, too. As a midfielder and a sharp shoot like that, oh, that's the best sound you can hear.
And you can hear it from so far away, too. You know how much zip the ball had behind it. Wes Schuler, that's his second goal of the game.
Second on the
goal,
season.
And you said his career, if I'm not mistaken.
Or on the season, yeah, for him. And, I mean, he's only a sophomore, too. So, I mean, he's going to be a huge part of them for the future in this midfield position. And 5'11", 210, you know, he has the build of a defensive midi, but he has the shot of an offensive midi. So, it's best of both worlds.
A big number to fill. And number 2, Dan Davis, who was a premier attackman for Arizona State. A lot of physical activity going around the midfield line. That was Jeff Sanchez. And the person opposing him was Peter Holland, who's been extremely physical all day long. Peter Holland, a sophomore, 6'1", 170 pounds from San Diego, California. 46 ground balls last season. 60 this season. So, of course, the winner of this game will move on to the second round, will be the semifinals of the SLC tournament, and take on number 1 Chapman. That'll be at La Costa Canyon High School in Southern California. That'll go on May 1st for the semifinals and eventually the finals.
You know, going off of that, a big turnover for the Sun Devils on that one. We mentioned speed earlier, and we really saw that emulated by Jeff Sanchez on that one. And you hear the chants from the crowd, wheels, wheels. Well, they've got him, folks. He might need a new pair of shoes after that one.
So if we put this into perspective, if ASU takes the win against USC today, and if UNLV is able to upset UCSB, that would mean that there are 3 SLC South teams and only 1 from the North. That one being the number 1 team in the nation, Chapman.
I mean, it's always a competitive conference in the SLC, and you really see that in the South because all these teams are scrappy. They have the talent that they use, and I mean, GCU, the reigning national champions as well, they're trying to go back for that trophy. But ASU and Chapman might give them a run for their money in this one.
If you take a look at the seedings from both the North and the South, it's a little bit different. For the North, they have 6 total teams in that conference, and 2 of those teams are ranked. Number 1 Chapman and number 12 UCSB. A nice interception from USC there. And then over on the South side, they have 5 teams in their conference. However, they're all ranked. Number 4 GCU, number 9 U of A, number 10 ASU, number 22 SDSU, and number 24 UNLV. So if we take a look at the bracket right now, it'll be number 24 UNLV taking on number 4 GCU. U of A, they're number 9. They're ranked higher than ASU. They're not even in the tournament. That's how crazy the MCLA is, because literally almost anybody can beat anybody.
You know, and it's April obnoxiousness. I mean, we have March Madness.
I like that.
I'm coining the term. I'm putting a trademark on it. April obnoxiousness. And I mean, you never know how the bracket is going to play out for any of these conferences, because in these types of situations, you give it your all. And I mean, USC has nothing to lose in this one, especially being unranked and having their first appearance in the SLC playoffs. You know, I thought they would have a little bit more heart out there, but now being down 10-0, it's tough against an offense like ASU.
Connor Ebner lowering the shoulder and running over defenders. Didn't make that much of a difference as USC ended up blocking the shot, and they'll pick up the ground ball.
Well, now this is a good opportunity for their offense to get going.
In transition.
Missed it. You know, that's kind of been the tale of the game so far, just sloppy turnovers and really kind of not playing the best game that you could play. Now we have a new goalie change as well. In for the Sun Devils is now Chris Rufanis, who, Troy, you mentioned earlier he was the starter for them last season. Haven't really seen too much of him this season as he only appeared in the matchup against the GCU Lopes back a few weeks ago. But now it's kind of good for him to get some reps in as well, because ASU has 3 goalies that they can really rely on.
Chris Rufanis. In the 2015 season, where Arizona State made it to the second round of the MCLA tournament, ended up losing to Virginia Tech. But Chris Rufanis, some solid numbers. Picked up 10 ground balls, allowed 135 goals, and had a goals against average of 7.9. He had 156 saves on the season, so that number with the goals allowed and the saves is pretty similar to each other, but it's good that he's getting a little bit of playing time today, just in case, you know, Arizona State gets into that mix-up again where all of a sudden they don't know which goalie to put in, like one is not performing, and then all of a sudden the next one gets the penalty, so then you got to put in another one. So I think it's a smart decision from Todd McRobbie just to get everybody a little bit of playing time, especially heading into the next round where everybody can be fresh.
And I mean, this tale of the ASU goalies, you kind of have 3 different play styles as well. So Russell Bartle, he's a tall guy at 6'4", 185, a local guy from Gilbert. And then you got Johnny Perliti, who's an athletic mindset. And, I mean, we've seen him have a great game this season, or in this game. And then you got Chris Rufanis as well, who's, you know, a very solid rock for him. But getting some playing time in this one. We'll see how he performs.
10-0 the score, 8:40 left in the third quarter. And the third member of our broadcast team, Bailey O'Carroll, has an update for us. What do you got, Bailey?
Hey guys, thanks. Yeah, I was listening into the halftime conversations by both coaches, and both respective coaches had very different messages for their team. Coach Todd McRobbie for ASU was definitely focused on just them working on their fundamentals and keeping this momentum up. You know, they're up 10-0 right now against USC, and for USC it was a very different message. Their coach really wanted them to play hard, listen to their instincts, and really just get out there and run, whereas ASU wanted to just relax and kind of, while keeping their foot on the pedal, still just keep the momentum that they have right now.
Yeah, with a double-digit lead going into halftime, you would think that McRobbie would start pulling some of his starters and give some of the players who don't get as much playing time and put them in, get some more experience. However, Arizona State, like Bailey said, keeping their foot on the pedal.
And, you know, I feel for these two teams right now. I've been in those situations where, it's, you know, you're up by a lot or you're down by a lot. And I understand the feeling that the Trojans have right now, especially being down 9 goals, after halftime. It's a different feeling. You know, you kind of lose hope in those situations, but you got to get that energy back up. And I think Geidelman's going to give it to him right there.
Tough task for USC, especially with so much time left on the clock and haven't even put a goal up onto the scoreboard yet. And a lot of long shots from Arizona State. That's Henry Archie trying to snipe it in. Last goal scored in this quarter was at the 12:53 mark by Wes Schuler, which was his second on the day. Of course, the last score early in the season. And then there's another score right there, that time by Montana Griffin. His first goal of this game and his second on the season.
And that's good for the Sun Devils right now, getting those rotations in and really working on the fundamentals like Bailey said in her report. And that's a good open look for the Sun Devils right there. Those goals right in front of the cage, right near the crease area. You can do a lot with them, especially if you're open like that. Either fake them out high and then go low, or do the opposite. Fake low, then go high. And right there, Montana sending it in for his second goal of the season. Good for him.
So Montana getting some more playing time, the 6-foot sophomore out of Culver City, California. Now you see Peter Holland for USC, one of the long stick middies. And it's funny, Blaine, we were talking about this last night. We're looking up USC stats, studying a little bit for the call, and it didn't seem like USC's faceoff stats were updated. And I kind of made the guess that Peter Holland with 60 ground balls on the season was the main faceoff guy for them. And actually, coming into this season, it was Peter Holland who had a very impressive stat line. Of course, I mentioned earlier 60 ground balls and 46 last season.
You know, with a player like that, especially if you're taking faceoffs against a long pole, it's kind of hard to interpret as well, because normally when you're in a faceoff, when you're at the faceoff at X, you see two short stick middies in there, but with the long pole, you can grasp it a little easier and really torque it a little easier too, because you don't have to use so much of your body in order to brush the ball out. You know, with the long stick middies, you see them be more of a sweeping faceoff specialist instead of the clamp.
You're absolutely right. We also got onto the conversation where the long stick middies and a flag is thrown. This will be on USC, so ASU will have the man-up advantage after this.
Yeah, big head-to-head contact right there. That's going to be a flag every time. And, you know, one of the biggest things in sports right now is concussion awareness, and Lacrosse has done a very good job of it, making new helmets, integrating new technology and new rules for it.
And a solid shot. Tommy Carrasco, his first goal of the game. Sophomore midfielder. Now puts the Sun Devils up. A Baker's dozen.
That's a great look from Carrasco as well, getting his 12th goal on the season right there. And you know what's dangerous? He's only a sophomore too, so he's going to be back for another year. And we've really seen him develop as a player. And I mean, he had a breakout freshman season at 12 goals and 13 assists, tallying 25 points. And now that'll be his 22nd point this season. So really making a run for his money.
And Carrasco, he had to share some playing time with a few All-Americans. Henry Archie not being one of them, but I mean, Henry Archie always a solid midfielder for Arizona State, and he's a playmaker. But then Cooper Piquel, who was the team leader in points for Arizona State last season, and he was an All-American as well, and I believe he was the year before. I could be mistaken on that. But Tommy Carrasco coming in as a freshman, having to share some playing time with a few upperclassmen, really paying dividends, and you can see his game has been developing, and he's become a much better lacrosse player.
And you see that from a lot of the middies on this squadron as well, especially from Adam Beecham. You know, he's returning from last year as he took a year off, and he's got 15 goals on this season. And I mean, in his sophomore year, he had 20 goals and also 30 points to contribute to his name as well. So it's just been a great season for the midfield, for the attack, just the offense in general for the Sun Devils this year.
And it's funny because you mentioned Adam Beecham, and we almost didn't even notice until now, but we haven't really seen him get any playing time today. We know that he's here, but however, I don't know if Coach Todd McRobbie's resting him or somebody just outplayed him, but Beecham hasn't scored a goal because I don't think he's gotten in the game yet. Beecham has been an important part to this Arizona State team this year.
And what a yard sale there from the Sun Devils. What a momentum shift for them. The long stick mini, Kyle Corona just shuffling it in there and taking it to him. What a play.
And we hear Kyle Corona's name a few times over the broadcast, one of the long stick middies for Arizona State. And if you get your name mentioned a few times in the game, you know you're having a good match.
Well, especially for Rhett Rogers and Finn Wells, Patrick Haviland too.
Yep.
It's been great for the attack and the offense in general. And then Kyle Corona showing that the defense can step up as well.
Absolutely. Defense is such a big part. And honestly, for Arizona State, their defense has stepped up, and they've actually averaged, well, can't even finish this sentence because Finn Wells, he gets himself a hat trick on the day. Wells and Rogers, both recording hat tricks for Arizona State. Now they're up by the unlucky 13. However, USC doesn't have a score yet.
Well, I mean, that's just the connection and the chemistry from this Arizona State offense has been seen throughout the season. And I mean, Finn Wells having a hat trick, Rhett Rogers having a hat trick, Patrick Haviland hinting at it with 2 goals. We could see another one from him, but Finn matching his goal stats with the number on his jersey. What an impressive stance from him.
Trevor Driscoll, opening faceoff, takes a shot, gets pushed down after. Arizona State will have the turnover. Katzman will inbound, but it's funny because Arizona State, their goal leader for most of the game was Rhett Rogers. He has a hat trick. He was the first one to get it on his team, but he's been pretty quiet as of late. Hasn't scored since 6:45 from the second quarter. Another flag thrown, and it's against Arizona State. Rafanis picks up the ball.
You know, we've kind of seen a scrappy game in this one, as it's the third penalty on the Sun Devils and 5 in total during the game. You see that kind of momentum going forward, and you know, you get into these situations where it's a lot of passion, a lot of emotions running through you right now. They just kind of got to keep calm in these situations and do the fundamental defense that Todd McRobbie has really hammered in for them.
And we see the trainers looking at Trevor Driscoll, one of the face-off specialists for Arizona State, immediately after the whistle was blown, taking his helmet off and his gloves, getting checked out by the trainer. He is on his feet, hands on his hips, but we'll keep you updated on Driscoll's status. Excellent pass, Askew. His shot saved, and it was a good one by Rafanis.
Oh, that was directly right to Rafanis, right to his helmet, and just putting up the stick and able to cradle it in. What a save. And you know, usually on those shots you see goalies go up with the stick in order to deflect it back behind the cage in order to get it out of bounds so that they could have the chance to chase. But Rafanis showing that his stick is kind of like a basketball hoop, just going straight in.
And Askew had a great opportunity there too, aiming for that top right corner, which is pretty much where you want, especially with a righty goaltender, because the stick's not on that side. However, Rafanis read it perfectly and saved USC from getting their first goal of the game. So just under 3 minutes here in the third quarter, Arizona State up 13-0 here in the first round of the SLC tournament.
You see Jeff Sanchez on the offensive end, looking at him going in, driving in, trying to get a shot up, but able to deflect the ball out as USC.
Eventually picked up by Henry Griffith. A new name that we've seen, and another penalty on USC. That's not what they need. An easy pass coming from Montana Griffin. Eventually picked up by Wells again, who's been in the whole entire game. Has a hat trick. Pass it off to Ebner over on the far side.
And Ebner already has an assist on this game. We'll see if he can muster in another one, as he doesn't have the most impressive stat line, but he's one of those playmakers that can really set up the offense really well, because he has that open eye for passes and setting it up, getting the picks off too.
And a whistle is blown. Unsure of the reason, but I believe it'll still be Arizona State's ball.
Yeah, basically on that one, just trying to get the penalty kill off and making sure that USC gets into the box for the penalty that should be served.
It's actually a tie. It's a tie game over on UCSB and the UNLV game. So it was UNLV looking like they're going to pull off the upset. They were up 9-6 at a certain time, and now UCSB charging right back, trying to make the North proud.
And they're doing a good job of it too. And I mean, what a game to be had for both the Runnin' Rebels and the Gauchos in that one. You know, those are the types of games that you really want to get in and really have a thrill for, because those 1-goal differential games are just the best in lacrosse.
Another penalty. This one will be on Finn Wells. So USC, they'll get the man-up advantage, but it will still be Arizona State ball. Actually, I am mistaken. It'll be USC's ball.
Well, what a penalty game from them too. And I mean, that'll be the 4th penalty on the Sun Devils, and then the Trojans, on the other hand, have 3 on the day as well. So it's been a rough and tumble game for them, but it's been all Arizona State, 13 goals.
It seems like as fatigue is starting to play a little bit of a factor,
And now another update from the UCSB UNLV game. It looks like 10-9 in favor of the Gauchos with 10:30 left in the quarter as Zabel got the goal on, or Zabel got an assist to Samuel on that one. A very competitive matchup for the North.
That game's still in the third quarter, so we'll keep you updated as long as this game's still going on. Under a minute left here in the third. Arizona State still up 13-0. Ball on the ground. Eventually picked up, and Arizona State looking like they'll get the last shot.
They got to execute the clear here. Got to move it past. This has been where the Sun Devils have had some trouble as of lately. And today it's been pretty on point.
Archie almost being triple teamed at the time. Ebner able to get it past the midfield line.
That's good. Good move from Ebner, really showing his wheels on that one.
"15 seconds. Here comes Griffith with a sidearm shot. This one goes far to the right. 8 seconds left to go.
The best thing to do on this one is try and get a high point shot for him. Really spread out the defense.
Ebner tried to find that left bottom corner but couldn't do it. 2 seconds left. Arizona State, not sure if they'll be able to get a shot off. One. Buzzer.
Bit of rough play at the sound of the buzzer in front of the cage as Henry Griffith just kind of tumbled in. But he looks to be okay.
Arizona State, only 4 goals in the third quarter. They share that same stat line in the first quarter, but still up 13-0 over the men of Troy. And Blaine, honestly, it seems like that really tough schedule that Arizona State had to endure in the regular season is paying off.
Definitely, and I mean the momentum that they've been riding on after the rivalry win against the Lax Cats down in Tucson, and especially the games that they had success in Colorado, has really translated into this one. And come playoff time, what a time to have that kind of momentum too, especially heading into the MCLA tournament as well. And you know, Arizona State is used to having this playoff situation, and what a game to have at home as well, in front of your home crowd. I mean, the fans love it, you and I love it, and I'm sure they love it too. You know, they do such a good job here at ASU West Campus providing us with the best service, and we like to thank them as well.
Absolutely. I mean, looking at these teams and comparing their two schedules, ASU has had to go up against 9 ranked teams. USC, only 5. 2 of those ranked teams, of course, number 1 Chapman and number 12 UCSB, losing both of those games with a score of 4-14. However, if you look at the score differential between the two, Arizona State against top 25 teams, 90-74. So they haven't scored more than 6 goals against a top 25 opponent this year.
Well, you know, and that's just grit. You just got to fight, and especially with the schedule that Arizona State has had, they've really sound that they have embraced the fight.
Jeff Sanchez with a nice check on Cole Roberson.
Thank you. Thank you.
Arizona State back on the charge, and it's Zach Mathian with the ground ball pickup. Checking back into the game.
And that kid can do it all, really. Zach Mathian, he can face off, he can play defense, he can pick it up in his own zone, too. And we've seen him score a couple goals this season as well. 2 goals on the season for him.
And my goodness, what a set of hair.
Yeah, oh, the flow. The flow is on point, really.
It really is.
He must use Pantene.
I would not put it past you, but Brian Kerrigan, I think one of the sophomores for USC, one of the defensive men for the Trojans, he has a nice set of lettuce too. I think he could really challenge Zach Mathian in a flow-off.
Yeah, in a flow-off. That's a new term. I haven't heard that.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna keep that. Patent pending.
So you have flow-off. I have April obnoxiousness.
That's right.
You know, Webster should really come to Arizona State West Campus and
That's right.
kind of get those in the dictionary.
The number 1 school in the nation in innovation.
Not only in technology, but in words.
It's what we're best at. So the start of the fourth quarter, Arizona State still up 13-0. No scores in this quarter yet. 13:25 is the time on the clock. But it's funny, Blaine, you were going to practice the other day to help get some quotes for some of the Arizona State coverage that you do, and
That's right.
they ended up not having practice, if I'm correct.
You are correct. And on that Thursday, normally where Arizona State practices is right behind Farrington Stadium, the softball stadium for Arizona State. Now, that field is very open. It's a very nice open field for them, much like the West Campus here. As a quick shot there by USC is able to be deflected by Russell Bartle, who just checked in for the Sun Devils. We'll get to him in a bit, but the field that Arizona State practices on was covered in tents, and there was no lacrosse players out there. There was just tents, and I was curious, why would they not have practice, and why are there tents in the field? Well, it turns out that yesterday and Friday there was a Native American festival held on that field where there was a lot of music playing, a lot of free food and stuff like that. And I found it kind of ironic, a lacrosse field going with a Native American festival, because the sport of lacrosse actually has Native American ties, where they would play for miles at a time. The field was miles at a time, and they would play for days at a time too, even going into the night hours. And mind you, they didn't have nice stadium lights like that we do here on the West Campus.
Right.
So it's just kind of funny.
And it's funny when we talk about somebody really being passionate about a sport.
That's right.
You're only allowed to play for a certain amount of hours on a collegiate team. Back then, the Native Americans, they play for days, okay? So you have no reason to complain if you're actually tired.
And without padding, too, mind you.
That's right. But the sport has developed, and it's come a long way, and it's the fastest growing sport in America. And so we talked about it earlier in the broadcast, how Trevor Driscoll was down in the count, and he went out for a little bit, and we actually have Bailey O'Carroll with an update on his status. What do you got, Bailey?
Yeah, thanks, guys. Trevor Driscoll does appear to have an injury. He's on the sideline. I talked to the trainer. She said it does appear to be a respiratory issue. He does appear to have had this issue before. It was not playing related and does not seem to be playing related this time, but I'll check back in with the trainer and get you guys another update soon.
Appreciate it, Bailey. Thanks for all your work. So a few changes. Zach Mathian checking back into the game. We did expect Trevor Driscoll after, Zach Mathian was just doing work in the faceoff X. And then now Russell Bartle. He was the starter at the beginning of the season. We mentioned he's a junior transfer from High Point University, and he's back in the game right now.
Yeah, good to see some minutes from him and really having that kind of goalie situation be switched up for him as well. And I mean, Russ, he's got an impressive stat line on him this season too. Only 2.9 goals allowed average, a 63 save percentage, and about 5 saves per game. That's pretty competitive with Johnny Perliti as well.
Bartle really developing into his new role on the team. We actually had Bailey O'Carroll, who's our sideline reporter today, do a story on him and his new role, and he's a very good sport about it too. I mean, it's a tough task, especially going up against GCU, where they have so much offensive firepower behind them with Dean Farrell, Wingraniak, Balistreri. Almost any goalie in the MCLA would dread going up against those players. And Bartle, unfortunately, had to be the starter for Arizona State that night, and it was difficult. And for him, he hasn't really seen playing time since, just because Johnny Perliti, he's been so good and really changed the dynamic of this Arizona State team. But yes, of course, like you said earlier, it's great to see that he's actually getting some more playing time, and McRobbie doing work, really balancing his team out, making sure that some of the players are ready for the future games, not just going in cold.
Well, and that's good to have for your team as well. You have those numbers that you can rotate in and get some players off that, need a rest out there, especially on the midfield side as well, because as a midi, you're running up and down all sides of the field. You're not just in one place at a time. And I know from experience, you get tired at those stages too, especially if there's a lot of turnovers or you're having to execute the clear game a lot as well. So it's good to have those kind of numbers, and we see teams like UNLV and USC today that don't have those kind of numbers that Arizona State has, and it's kind of affected them as well. The fatigue sets in, and a little bit of aggressiveness plays into that too, especially with all the penalties that we've seen as well. 3 from USC, 4 for the Sun Devils as well. But you just got to power through it sometimes.
And it's kind of funny because USC, it might sound strange, but I think they've gotten better throughout the game. Right now, 10:32 in the fourth quarter. They haven't given up a goal since the 4:36 mark in the third. So they're hanging tough, and you really just got to commend the passion and determination that they're not going to give up no matter what the score is.
Well, I mean, your first SLC playoff appearance, ever in your program's history. And I mean, you just got to go out there with a passion. And I mean, even if you're losing 13-0, if you finish strong, then you know that you did all your best. And that's the best you can ask for your team.
And I think they've got the right coach for the job, too.
Sure do.
Adam Gittleman, currently playing in the MLL for the Atlanta Blaze. And he's a goalie, too, so you have to expect their defense to be one of the best in the MCLA. And Arizona State, they get a quick score. Montana Griffin, that's his second goal of the game and the first of the fourth quarter.
Well, what a game that we've seen from Montana as well, getting his second goal, like you said. And I mean, the young guys on this team have really blossomed towards the end of the season. Patrick Haviland, a sophomore for him, having 13 goals on the season and having, great games for him as well the past few weeks. And then Marthins, the freshman recruit out of Rancho Santa Margarita, California.
Trabuco Hills High School.
Hey, there you go. You know it. And then 14 goals on him, and he's already got one in this game as well. The future does look bright for Arizona State, and especially with Zach Mathian, the faceoff man, who wins another one there, being a sophomore. Dangerous.
Almost expected Zach Mathian to take a shot. Ball stays in play, so USC, they do have a whistle. Roberson trying to pick it up, a nice check on Corona. Ball still in his stick, and a great pass. And another goal from Griffin, a hat trick. And what a time for Griffin to really come alive in the playoffs.
Well, just a great game from him, and really showing that he really has the talent. And I mean, we see that from a lot of these freshmen, and Montana adding to the team right now. He's giving a thumbs up to his bench, and the fans are giving him a thumbs up as well. Impressive stance from him in this game.
So in the last 25 seconds, Montana Griffin able to score 2 goals for Arizona State, putting them up 15-0 here in the fourth quarter and the first round of the SLC playoffs.
And another face-off win from Mathian on that one. Boy, what a game from him. 12 face-off wins.
He's fun to watch.
Oh, yes.
And Zach Mathian, I believe we mentioned it before, but Arizona State has been blessed with face-off specialists. The last 3 years, Zach Handy has been first-team All-American, and he's also been a 2-time Defensive Player of the Year for Arizona State. And last year, after almost every single practice, it was Zach Mathian and Zach Handy staying for another half an hour working on their craft. And that's why Zach Mathian, as only a sophomore, is one of the most dominant face-off specialists you'll see in the MCLA.
And that pays off. Hard work pays off for him, and practice does make perfect, and we've seen that from Mathian. And the dangerous thing about him, I mean, he's a sophomore out of Knoxville, Tennessee. 18 ground balls coming into this game, and 2 goals and 2 assists for a total of 4 points. Last year, he didn't take too many face-offs.
And Henry Archie, the senior, he gets his first goal of the game, the playmaker, making him play himself.
So it's the 16th goal of the game. Henry Archie's number is 16 as well. Coincidence?
It just makes sense. 8:32 on the clock. And Arizona State's got this one pretty much wrapped up, and we start to see that Coach Todd McRobbie is substituting some of his starters for some players who haven't seen the field a whole lot this season.
Yeah, this thing has really gotten out of hand as of lately. I mean, Arizona State just going on these runs, 4 goals at a time, 5 goals at a time for each quarter. And I mean, in the fourth, they're on a 3-goal run right now. We see another goalie switch for ASU right now. Number 41 for him, and I believe that's Kelly between the pipes.
Lester, good.
Billy Kelly, another freshman goaltender for Arizona State. There are 5 goalies on the Arizona State roster. Tom Yachevsky, the only senior, haven't seen him all season. Russell Bartle, the junior, transfer from High Point University. Johnny Perliti, Billy Kelly, and then Chris Rufanis. So Todd McRobbie stacking up on goalies. Another shot, this time hitting the wrong side of the net. Griffith thought he had a score, ended up empty-handed.
Well, that's a break for the Trojans right now, and in these kind of situations, you only have one goalie in net right now, and I mean, when they put up 16 against you, your confidence just goes down, and he's flattened right there, but a penalty will be drawn. Fans not liking it too much.
Completely blindsided was Katzman, as the check was laid on by, I believe it was Henry Griffith. Then Henry Griffith, from at least 50 feet away, rolling the ball all the way into the net.
Yeah, Katzman a little slow to get up on that one. You don't like to see that from your starting and only goaltender for him. And I mean, Geidelman is also a goaltender in the MLL. I don't know if it's legal to suit him up, but at this point, they might have to find a substitute for him.
Mentioned Gittleman, professional goalie in the MLL, playing for the Atlanta Blaze. He was with the Boston Cannons in his last team, and he is a very, very good coach. He spent the last 4 seasons being an assistant coach at Harvard, and he actually led Harvard to its first NCAA tourney appearance since 2006, and actually led them to an Ivy League championship as well. And they brought them all the way up to number 11 in the nation, which was actually their highest seeding in program history.
And, that type of division of play, especially at the NCAA level, and especially in the Ivy level too, that's an impressive stat line from him, because Harvard wasn't that well recognized of a lacrosse program. When Geidelman showed up, turned around.
And only as an assistant coach, but assistant coaches play such an important factor for a team's success, because they're really the type of coaches who you don't talk about too much, but there's a lot of work that goes behind the scenes that they do, and they really connect with their players and can make a difference in the long run.
And you're exactly right on the behind-the-scenes part, because they really specialize in different areas. I mean, they specialize with the defensive struggle, or the defensive stances that a head coach just can't really get to, and it may not have time to get to, and they would focus on the face-off coaches. They focus just on face-offs in order to develop those skills. That way, you have a better team overall.
And coming in before the game, we mentioned the 2 different type of coaching styles that McRobbie and Gittleman both have. McRobbie being an attackman in college, and for USC, Gittleman being the exact opposite type of player, being a goalie. Played at the University of Virginia and did so well, of course, now being a professional, going up against some of the best teams in the nation, actually practicing with the U.S. national team too. That's how good Gittleman is, and of course, after this MCLA season is over for him, he'll just be going back, continuing to practice with the Blaze and continue his lacrosse career. But looking forward to that in USC into the upcoming seasons, you can only expect good things, especially from the guidance, and being his first year, bringing them all the way to the SLC playoffs, which they've never done in USC's history. So he's already off to a pretty good start, and you can expect him to be here for a long time.
Yeah, it's a building block for him right now. And I mean, your first season as a head coach for a program that wasn't really looked at too much in the SLC,
right,
and putting them into the playoffs for that. That is huge as a head coach, especially in your first year. So I expect a lot of good stuff, and it's been a great season for him, and I think that'll transition into the future as well, because he's a player in the MLL, like you mentioned,
right,
and he can really develop the skills of specific players for his team. So
you're going to have to listen to him anyway, because
yeah.
he's doing it right now.
Yep.
It's literally practice what you preach, and Gittleman, he's a perfect example of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny, looking at the season for USC, they've only given up 16 goals one other time, and that's to Boise State University. Even against number 1 Chapman and number 12 UCSB, they only give up 14. Boise State, however, a very good offensive team with the likes of Liam Finn, Adam Smith, and Zach Porter. All those guys, very, very good players in the MCLA.
And then on the other side of the tape, this is the biggest lead that Arizona State has had this season as well. And I mean, 16-0, that goal differential is huge. And I mean, the only other time that we've seen a score kind of be so lopsided like this was when they played UNLV, the Runnin' Rebels, back 2 weeks ago.
Now that score was 20-8, but Arizona State, they've had a series of games this season where it's been so close, and that's where actually most of their losses have come from.
And we mentioned UNLV before, and they are playing against UCSB. We have a score update for you in that one, 13-11 in favor of UCSB. So a very competitive matchup for that game. Kind of a total opposite in this one.
Exactly. North versus South in both of the first round matchups. In the South winning in this one, but the North winning on the top half of the bracket.
There's just under 14 minutes left in that one. So it's clutch time for the Runnin' Rebels if they want to try and win this one.
Only down by 2 though, so still a competitive game.
Lots of time, lots of time. Whereas in this one, not too much time.
Exactly. Arizona State, they haven't gone up against Chapman this season, so once this game is over, once again they'll travel down to Southern California at La Costa Canyon High School and play the Panthers May 1st. That'll be a fun one. Number 1 versus number 10, 2 top 10 teams going at it in the second round of the SLC tournament. Of course, number 4, Grand Canyon, they get a bye this week, and they'll play the winner of the UNLV-UCSB game. Good shot block from Billy, using his chest to get in on the action, keeping the shutout alive for Arizona State.
Well, as a goalie, you want to try and use every part of your body, whether it's the legs, your hips, your stick, your head. Billy using his chest on that one, protecting the shutout. What a performance we've seen from him right now. 3 saves. It's impressive for a goalie that hasn't seen too much playing time this season.
I've always been mesmerized by lacrosse goalies and just the lack of padding that they wear during actual games. I don't think I could ever do it just because it doesn't look like they're wearing anything, and all of a sudden these balls, who are much harder than they look, are coming at you at 60, 70, 80 miles an hour.
And I mean, goalies, they have a tough mentality, and you know the chest pads are essential for them. But the sticks have just been working for the goaltenders right now. And I mean, save after save. They haven't allowed 1 goal in this matchup, which we haven't seen all season from them. So a shutout currently, but there's still time left for USC to get up on the board.
Like you said, still a little bit of time, under 3 minutes left. But looking forward, Arizona State going up against number 1 Chapman. That'll be May 1st next week. And if we look at the history between the 2 schools, it has not fared very well for Chapman. Even though they are the best team and they are undefeated right now, Arizona State against Chapman in the last 5 matchups have won every single time.
And I mean, they've been having a hot season right now. 16-0 record. Yes, they're in the North, but who knows what they can do against an Arizona State team like this. And on the other hand, who knows what the Sun Devils could do against an undefeated Panther team as well, because they've beaten top 10 teams in this season. Colorado, University of Arizona, and it can happen. It really can happen for the Sun Devils. So, you know, in our prediction show, you had the Sun Devils upsetting Chapman.
That's right, I did.
I could see it.
Yeah, and it's becoming more apparent now. I mean, 16-0, you can already see how much this Arizona State has improved since the beginning of the season, because the last time they played USC, the score was 11-4. Now it's 16-0.
And you got 3 players on this Sun Devil team that have hat tricks in this game alone, with Rhett Rogers having the first one, then Finn Wells collecting his, and then Montana Griffin.
A surprise.
A surprise for him, but a pleasant surprise as well.
Exactly, and Arizona State, they've had these newer players really start to step up. Jake Martins, Patrick Haviland, really focused on ball movement after that GCU game, and I think that's been the X factor for the Arizona State's play, because ever since then, they've almost been undefeated. The only loss coming from Colorado State, where they lost 7-6, but of course they played the number 5 team in the nation, Colorado, the day before.
Well, you know, they always say that the more goals that a team has, the more wins they have. But you also got to look at those assist numbers, and the assists have been really racked up for the Sun Devils as well.
So just under a minute to play. Sweet 16 against Nada. Arizona State with a nice lead. And taking a look at the conference record for Coach Todd McRobbie, 10-2 in the playoffs. That'll improve to 11-2 going into the second round of the SLC tournament. He's 83-24 in his coaching career at Arizona State. A very impressive feat.
Yeah, very impressive indeed. I mean, as an assistant coach, we saw him develop his players very, very well, and then it translates right into his first year as a head coach.
So USC was going to get the last shot. A whistle will be blown. Ball possession will be for Arizona State. Only 6 seconds left until Arizona State will move on to the next round against number 1 Chapman.
And the whistle being blown on that play due to a penalty back behind midfield, a slashing call on the Sun Devils. But with 6 seconds left, yeah, I don't think it really will affect the Sun Devils too much in this game. That penalty being called on Connor Ebner. He'll take a knee in the sin bin.
Quick shot, doesn't go in. That one rolls behind the net, and the shutout is complete for Arizona State. 16-0 here on Arizona State University's West Campus, and they'll advance to the second round of the SLC tournament and have to take on number 1 Chapman in Southern California next week, May 1st at Lacrosse Canyon, California. But what a way to start the postseason.
What a way indeed. I mean, the X factor in this one was both face-offs and goaltending. And I mean, the goaltending was perfect for the Sun Devils. No goals allowed, and you saw the rotations in there as well. Started with Perliti, then moved over to Rafanis, then over to Bartle, and then we saw Billy Kelly as well, another freshman for the Sun Devil team. So the goaltending was phenomenal in this one. So many saves, no goals allowed. This is the first shutout that we've seen for the Sun Devils this season, and it's a rare occurrence in lacrosse too, because you don't really see these shutouts happen too often. And if you do, the score is not 16-0. It's usually like 5-0 or 6-0. But what a game from the offense of Arizona State too, and especially the hat tricks from Rhett Rogers, Finn Wells, and then Montana Giffen. What a play.
Arizona State, they have a full head of steam going on to the next round against number 1 Chapman. In history has fared well for the Sun Devils, who will be the underdogs going up against the undefeated Panthers in the next game. However, they've won the last 5 matchups against Chapman. 16-0, the final score here at Arizona State University's West Campus. But don't go away yet. We'll have interviews with head coach Todd McRobbie and our player of the game. We'd like to thank everybody, especially the SLC network, for letting us broadcast this event. And also would like to thank our producer, Joey Hardy, for doing such a great job, and everybody else who has worked for the Walter Cronkite Sports Network. Once again, for Blaine McCormick, I'm Troy Lynch. Thanks again for tuning in to this Walter Cronkite Sports Network production. 16-0, the final score here in Glendale.
Welcome to WCSN's post-game coverage of this huge game for ASU versus USC. There you have it, ASU 16-0 over the Trojans. I mean, huge win, guys. I'm Eliav Gabai. With me is Ethan Gaines and Catherine Fitzgerald. Catherine, what impressed you most about this dominating performance from ASU?
I mean, putting up 16 goals in post season is big, but a shutout, I've never seen that in lacrosse before at any level. Just dominance by all the goalies. Perliti was huge. A few other guys got to get into, and just, you know, the defense really shut them down, especially with the goalies.
Now, Ethan, what can USC learn from a loss like this? Their first time in the playoffs, so what really can they learn?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is the key. First time in the playoffs for them in the school's history. So I think just that experience, you know, even a loss like this, just having the experience of being in the playoffs sort of readies them for next year and lets them know they need to work on some stuff, you know, all around on offense, just the turnovers, and then defensively, kind of letting ASU just get whatever they wanted on the defensive side. So I think USC has a lot of holes to fill, but having a game like this can be good for a program going forward, learning what they need to work on.
Now, Catherine, moving forward, what does this win mean for ASU moving to the next round of action?
It's just going to help them keep that momentum going. I mean, they had 4 wins over ranked teams coming into this weekend out of the last 5 games, get another big win here, but also with putting up so many goals, they were able to mix in more guys. You see how deep the team is. More guys got a chance to get on the field, get playing time, and that's going to help them not only this season, but for years to come.
Ethan, going up against a powerhouse, the #1 team in the nation in Chapman next round, what does ASU need to do to pull out this upset?
I think ASU needs to have a performance similar to how they played today. You know, just really clicking on both the offensive and defensive sides, playing their best lacrosse of the season down the stretch, which is going to be really important going into a game like that. 2 Chapman players allegedly involved with stealing a turkey a couple weeks ago. Potentially that could affect Chapman losing those 2 players potentially for the game, so ASU might need to take advantage of that. I think ASU has a great chance of winning this game just because of how they've been playing down the stretch.
Well, there you have it, guys. It was a great game, 16-zip. ASU having a dominant performance. We'll see how they play moving forward. For Ethan Gaines and Catherine Fitzgerald, I'm Eliav Gabai. Stick around for more Cronkite Sports post-game coverage of this SLC tournament matchup. Thank you for coming.
Hi, I'm Bailey O'Carroll here with ASU goalie Johnny Perliti. Now, Johnny, you guys got a shutout. What did the goalies do to make this happen?
The goalies came together. The defense also played pretty well and locked down D for us, so it was pretty easy with the defense we had today.
And then how did the defense make that easier on you guys to get that done?
They were just very physical with these guys and had good checks on their sticks and just played all around good defense.
Your team is very supportive of you. I heard before the game they were chanting your name. What does that mean to have that support from your team?
It means a lot to have that support from this team. Like, these guys have been great to me with the transition from Russ to me going in, but it's been really nice.
And since you've started for this team, what impact do you think that's had?
I mean, defense and offense have both come together pretty well in the past couple of games, so I mean, we both all played really well, and it's nice that we play well when I'm in. So.
Cool. Thank you so much. For Bailey O'Carroll, this is WCSN. Thanks for watching.
$16 to nothing is the final score here at Arizona State University's West Campus. First round of the SLC playoffs, and number 10 Arizona State taking down the unranked USC Trojans. Coach Todd McRobbie joins me today. Thanks for taking your time.
No problem.
But first ever shutout in the career of Arizona State. How does that feel?
We're sure about that?
We are sure.
Okay, well then that's a pretty good job then. I thought we've done a good job in defense before. These guys are living up to what their goals are. We had too many penalties. But they were able to shut them down, man down. Things that we can't afford to happen next weekend is giving Chapman man-up opportunities, so we have to rein that in a little bit.
This is the second time you've played USC this year. First time it was 11-4, this time a 16-0 shutout. What was the difference between those two games?
You know, I think they didn't travel with as many kids as they've normally had. They had a couple kids earlier in the season, so I think that hurt them a little bit, benefited us. And again, our kids are, pushing themselves and coming into their potential.
What was your mindset trying to sub in all of the other players? I mean, you subbed in all of your other goalies and you started putting more defenders in. What was the reasoning behind that?
It's the starter's job to get to a point where that can happen. So it had nothing to do with the coaches. It was all up to the players to do their job, to support their teammates so that their teammates could get in the game.
Now you got a pretty tough challenge going up next week against number 1 Chapman. How's the mentality of the team going into that game when they are undefeated?
Mentality is good. It's the underdog. We're not used to being the underdog going against Chapman. We played them tough the last five times. Last year too, had to go through Chapman to get to our goal. So I think this year it's just the way the cards went again, and we're taking it one game. It doesn't matter if it's Chapman next game, UC Santa Barbara, UNLV, whoever, Grand Canyon. It's just our next game, and that's in the way of our goal.
Coach, congrats on a great game and a first round win. They'll take on number 1 Chapman May 1st at La Costa High School in Southern California. For Coach Todd McRobbie, I'm Troy Lynch. Thank you for tuning in to this Walter Cronkite Sports Network production.